IVM.
Hello one, hello all. Welcome to the Diary of the Traveling Professor. And I'm Siddharth Deshmukh, your friendly neighborhood traveling professor himself. As I'm recording this podcast of mine, it's a Sunday, it's a lazy Sunday, and we've just woken up, kind of a little late because it's a Sunday. And also the bloody melatonin levels have kicked in, and it's winter and sunrise just happens later and later every single day. And as I think of sunrises, I'm also thinking of sunsets, and I'm thinking of so many media vehicles and media companies just biting the dust. I mean, somewhere I read on LinkedIn that Mumbai Mirror and Pune Mirror have, kind of wrapped up, their affairs, and it's no longer going to be a thing. And I feel very sad for that because they were at least representing the local communities in those two cities. And I'm wondering what's going to happen to that Mirror thing of the Times of India. But what they've realized is that the business case is just not viable. It's just not viable. Now, what's the interesting thing about this? Is it inevitable? I mean, like, for example, if you were in charge of a magazine, right, or if you were in charge of a newspaper, what are you going to do? Are you going to arrange the chairs on the deck of the Titanic? Trust me to screw that up. But to be honest, I actually think that most of these old media or traditional media, especially print and magazines and stuff, are going to have this sort of issue, this sort of problem. I mean, you might be the best in class for a magazine. I mean, you might be a Vogue, but you're still going to have a problem. And you might be the Times of India, but you're still going to have a problem. It's just the nature of the beast, because what I've come to realize is that, technology keeps changing, and the information delivery mechanism has always kept changing across, not just my lifetime, but even before, and even before that. You had the printing press, and now we are on the internet, and tomorrow there'll be virtual reality, and today's, kind of social media will be, the hot and happening social media will be tomorrow's history, because, it doesn't work. You have short-lived, messaging services like the pager service, and you have things that have lasted like the print media, which I thought was seeing a bit of a revival, especially during the pandemic, because a lot of the, older generations were like kind of really missing their fix when they had nothing better to do, when newspapers couldn't be delivered to doors. But I'm digressing. I think that it is going to be an issue for old media formats, and there has to be some disruption as far as, the way in which information is disseminated. The information requirement is there, right? Like, for example, all the local news that needs to be communicated still needs to be communicated. And at the moment, it was only radio to an extent and, print to an extent, the Mumbai Times and the Bangalore Mirrors and the rest of it that were doing it. But now suddenly it's gone. So what can new media be doing as far as local communities are concerned? Is there some way out? Because social media is okay, but it doesn't really particularly do that. I mean, on Instagram or on Facebook or on Twitter, you're kind of connected to the world, but who's connected to the local? I'm wondering, there's an opportunity there, and perhaps community radio is something that could work. I don't know, but this is a sort of a, you can look at it as a sunset, but you can also look at it as a sunrise industry yet to be opened up, because new technology, but old need. And that is something that I wanted to probably share with you today. Today's diary entry, by the way, is all about media formats. Now, here's another interesting question that I ask my students a lot of times. I mean, do you look at the Avengers, for example, as a series, which can very well be on, a Netflix or an Amazon Prime, or is it a set of movies? Now, is the Avengers actually created as a series, or is it created as individual movies? And if I look at it, that's changed, right? I mean, you have all these superhero films, but they're all interconnected, and there's all these hidden layers and meanings, and you have to have watched the other to understand a little bit about this one, which is a lot like a series. In fact, what I have heard was that the Queen's Gambit, the latest show on Netflix, was actually designed as a film, but the director didn't really want to cut out the parts, so they just kind of made it into a mini series and made sure that, there were 6 or 7 episodes. So maybe that is the move. Instead of making movies and waiting hopelessly as audiences don't come into theaters to buy overrated popcorn. Maybe what you need to do is maintain your intellectual and creative integrity, cut it into a series, and maybe sell it to a Netflix. And this is the way in which media has been kind of morphing, transmogrifying, if you have to use Calvin's word, into newer things. What I have noticed, although, is, if you are able to kind of record a show which comes on normal traditional television, and then you're able to fast forward through the ads, you will notice something really strange. You will notice that when you get into a break, and especially if you're seeing a documentary or something which is not like a soap or drama, but it happens during a soap or drama as well, if you see, they keep repeating the same thing so many times. Like when you're getting into a break, there's a certain cadence. When you're coming out of a break, a commercial break that is, there's a certain cadence. Now, yeah, you were watching this and now we shall get... Okay, and once you're seeing it without ads, that piece of extra programming really doesn't make any sense. And then you realize how much of that old traditional format was being chewed up by advertising. See, once the business model, the underlying business model is changed, everything changes too. So once you move from, advertising to subscription, content changes, content becomes better. And the initial content becomes better, then new content creators are inspired by that, or they want to live up to that standard. And suddenly we have a completely new culture. We've noticed this across media. However, print has also seen some changes. I mean, if you look at print, you have a newsletter like the Ken, which is a paid for subscription newsletter, which is a newsletter and also, news, essentially news stories, which is so good, which are generally well written, well researched, and way better to read than some of the editorials that happen, which are paid for in some of these traditional media formats. It's interesting also in the world of podcasts, because people are beginning to buy up podcasting companies or acquire podcasting companies all across the world. Well, it's happened in India, as we know, and it's also happening across the world. Amazon's bought a podcast company. And what we've realized is, well, there are many reasons why people buy podcasting companies. One of the most important reasons is that, this kind of medium is where tastemakers exist. So, and Amazon buying up a podcasting company, or even for that matter, delving into, Amazon videos, is not because perhaps it wants to get into the media business, but because it wants to sell more hygiene products, maybe. I don't know. It just wants to convert Amazon wants to convert its relationship from being a transactional one to one where it can tug into your emotional heartstrings. Well, that is how it's going. So many media formats changing, so many old formats completely getting destroyed or burnt up, and so many new formats coming up, so many things being rejigged. It is an interesting time. It is a very interesting time, and the pandemic has just made it a lot more fast, right? All these changes are happening very quickly, and we are all accepting of these changes. As I said, to a lot of my students, well, do you like plays? Do you like going to the theater and seeing plays? And a lot of people say, yes, we do. Do you know the most popular way of these plays that have happened in the pandemic was to actually live stream them and live stream these performances? And then you suddenly realize, oh my God, the theater and the plays on the theater, while they were good, it's all going to be nostalgic old tech, bro. It's just like those record players, and it's just like the cassettes and all of it. And perhaps we don't need to be connected so much to the technology, even today's technology, but to the content, to the message, and to the entertainment or to the education. Well, I hope you like this diary entry of mine. Many more to come from where this came from. And if you want to reach out to me on LinkedIn or Instagram, I'm of course there. And obviously you can ask me a question over there, which I will convert into a podcast, mind you, because that is the new media way. That is the new media way. And I'm happy to make the world my classroom. Go to ivmpodcast.com to listen to podcasts like these. Just go to the app or, download the app, that is, or go to the .com, or go to wherever you listen to your podcast from. On that happy note then, until next time.
I hope you enjoyed that show. If you aren't following us on social media, please do. We're IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. It's been an absolutely incredible week on the network. We had so many great guests, so many great episodes. Advertising is dead. We had Faye D'Souza on. Varun took a break for 4 weeks, but what a bang he's back with. Siddharth Deshmukh celebrates the 100th episode of The Traveling Professor. It is an amazing show which I cannot say enough good things about. Please do listen to it. And a different Siddharth on the network, Siddharth Bhatia. He's just been absolutely guest after guest, right? This week, Zoya Akhtar talking about Gully Boy. I couldn't imagine a more interesting conversation. Ragini Kumar is on 2 different episodes this week. She is on Cyrus Says and she is on Edges and Sledges, both in anticipation of her new show, Zindagi Diaries. Do check out her appearance on both of those shows and her new show as well. Tanvi Ashlok of The Millennial Athlete had a phenomenal episode with Dinesh Karthik and Abhishek Nair. Absolutely riveting stuff, talking about mentorship in many different ways. Definitely do give that a listen. And finally, I have a request to all of you. We have our listener survey going out this week. Every year we send out a listener survey at the end of the year. We're doing it again this year. And we would really, really, really appreciate your help in letting us know a little bit more about yourself. Our advertisers are really keen to find out who is listening to us and more about them. Anything that you could do is kept anonymously, and we would really appreciate your help in this. And to sweeten the pot just a little bit, we'll be giving a randomly selected group of participants in the survey some IBM swag. Last year we gave out coffee mugs. What we're going to give out this year is still a surprise. So please do help us out. Would really, really appreciate that. And with that, I hope to see you again next week.
Namaskar, dear Bandhu. My name is Ashish Vidyarthi. These are truly challenging times, and in these times, we need hope. Do take time to listen to my podcast, Begin the Journey. Available on IVM Podcasts, website, app, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Remember, there is hope because there's one life and we are alive.